Hey, welcome to TruckU. I'm Matt Steele.
Hi, I'm Bruno Massel.
Now, you caught us about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway through. Today, we're working on this 2008 Chevy Silverado, and we're putting in this 6-inch suspension lift kit from Rough Country. This is a nice kit. We really like the way it's going together, and when it's all done, this truck is going to look fantastic.
Now, one of the things we really like about it is the fact that it's bolts in for the most part. I mean, obviously, we had to take everything from the lower control arm down, off, and out of the way. One minor modification we had to do was this mounting bracket went into place here, like this. And what it did is it held this differential. So with the lift kit in place, we need to bring the differential down, so we cut it off, and then we had to do some modifying to this case here. Now, we didn't dig into the differential itself. We just cut off these cooling fins here to make sure that everything fit nicely.
There was one more bracket that we had to cut off, and that was this bracket. It was up at the front side of this differential, kind of up in there like that. So we got that up and out of the way. That way we could drop the differential down where it needed to be for the suspension kit. Now, at this point, we're ready to start putting the puzzle back together. It all started right here with this rear cross member. We got that into place. Then you kind of work your way forward, and you see what's going on back in here. There was another drop bracket kind of up in here that kind of mounted the differential up on the top side. Then you've got this front cross member right here, and it's all held together with this big skid plate. So you kind of put all this back together at one time, and once it's all done, and once everything's bolted back together, this is going to be a nice, good, strong unit right there.
Yeah, not only does it look good, but it's a precision unit because it's all laser cut. This way, everything lines up and all the bolt holes work, which is nice. Now,
yes.
Another neat piece of this whole kit is this front knuckle. Now, it's made of one-piece cast steel, and the deal is it's going to push our wheels down 6 inches. Now, this is the old one. You can see the mounting points are lined up pretty much even to give you a point of reference. Now, what we're doing is pushing everything down 6 inches. Oh, I'll show you from here to here. You can see right there we're 6 inches down. By doing that, it picks the truck up 6 inches. So that's where our lift comes into play.
Yeah, they're all CNC machines, so they're nice and precise, and these are another nice piece too. But before we get these back on, we need to get that lower control arm in place.
Yeah, you're right. One thing nice about this whole suspension kit is not only is the truck going to look a lot better because it'll sit at a better stance, but it's going to give us the proper clearance we want to put these big 35-inch tires on it.
Absolutely. Now we'll get that in there, slide that up. Let me get this started. That way it doesn't fall on us and we don't get any little surprises. All right, that's good.
Got it?
Yep,
Okay.
that's not going anywhere.
Now, one thing you'll notice, we went ahead and put on our hub assembly onto the steering knuckle. Now, keep in mind that you want to have the proper orientation because if you don't, well, when at the end of it, you're going to have to take it all apart and put it on the correct way. What we want is the ABS to be up on top, our adapter there, and our dust shield to be the front so our brake assembly can get on the back.
Now, when you're tightening down this whole knuckle assembly, basically on the top and the bottom, you've got 2 ball joints. Now, if you're lucky, they'll seat themselves and everything will be fine and you can tighten them right up. But if that's not the case, you might have to just apply a little bit of pressure right there. That's just going to make life a little bit easier. And that way you can just zip it up and it won't spin out of control on you.
All right, I got it, man.
Right?
You got that?
That's fine.
All right, cool.
Now, also, on this side, we dropped the differential down a little bit, then we dropped the whole knuckle assembly down a little bit. So there was a little difference in the distance from here to there. Now the kit comes with the spacer right there that's going to make up for that gap in distance. So that's another nice thing about the kit.
What we want to do, though, is get it out of the way for the time being because we're going to need a little extra clearance to go ahead and get our axle into place. So we'll put it in first, and then we can put that adapter back in. You got that? Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind, a little tip for you guys, anytime you're using stuff with suspension, you want to stay nice and tight. So put a little thread lock around the bolt and make sure you tighten it down to the appropriate spec because last thing you want is suspension coming apart. That can get ugly quick.
Words to live by.
Okay, so what we're doing is putting the torsion bar back into place. Now, most people don't realize that on most of your IFS four-wheel drive trucks, you don't run a front spring. Instead, you run a torsion bar. The way this works is you use a key like this, put it on the back side of it, and what you're doing is putting a twist into the torsion bar, and that's going to give us your spring. So by this little adjustment here, it's got a set screw. It's going to push up on it, put a twist on or a preload, and that's where you're going to get your spring effect from. Now, what we're trying to do, though, is compensate for our lift kit with these little brackets.
Exactly. What we're trying to do is maintain the factory geometry and the factory ride. That way it's going to be nice and comfortable going down the road when we're sitting on the bigger tires. Now we've already dropped the whole front down a couple inches, so we need to drop everything back down a couple inches back here as well. Now when we started tearing everything out of here and taking things apart, we were very careful to mark a couple things. Most notably right here, we wanted to mark this where these torsion bars went in. We marked that with some white grease pen right there. We also marked it on the back because there's a slot or a groove right back here, which we marked. That way when this all goes back together, we know where to set this. So we know that everything's going to go back where it needs to go.
Yep.
always makes life a lot easier if you use the right tool for the job. Now this is your torsion bar tool, and it's specifically designed for this particular job. So we run this up here. There's a little groove up on top that we can get that top nub into. That way it's not going to roll around on us. And then this will actually get up into the little nub on the bottom side of the key. Now as we're turning this, we're rolling the key upwards, and we want to keep it moving and keep it moving. We're going to have to, use a lot more power than just my hand on it here in just a second, but we'll turn that key up to where we want it. Once we get the key where we want it, we take this little piece, and this will slide in right there into that opening. And that'll hold the key in place, and then when it's all done, we'll slide this bolt up in there, and that'll hold everything together. Now, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of tension in here, so it's always a good idea. Keep your fingers out of that hole, because if something does break loose, it's no match, or your finger's no match for that key when it comes slamming down. And speaking of things going wrong, I mean, that's a pretty good little C-clamp right there.
Wow.
It's not a cheapy one, and that's exactly what can go wrong.
Now, if you peel back to the back of the truck, you can see that things get a lot easier back here. All we have to do is put in this 4-inch lift block underneath this leaf spring. Now, keep in mind, these Chevy trucks come with a bit of a rake to them where the back's 2 inches higher than the front. That's how they come from the factory. So 4 inches in the back will even out this truck with 6 inches up in the front. It's really that easy. We're about done with our rough country lift kit. You can see that we've got a couple loose ends we need to tighten up. We'll take a break and get all that stuff tightened down nice and good. And when we come back, we've got a lot more work to do in this Silverado.